So first, just tell me when did the Duffers come to you and say they wanted you to be part of the season?
So I've been in touch with the Duffers since they graduated, right? Like text once every 6 or 7 months, and they intimated when season 4 came out. I was like, oh, this is great, it's amazing, hope you're enjoying all your flowers. They're like, oh, we thought we had a cameo for you in season 4, but it didn't pan out. And I said to my husband, I'm like, that's a nice way for them to put that. Sure you did, boys. And then, 2023? They reached out and they're like, hey, we don't know if you have the time or you're interested. We know you're really busy, but we think we might have something for you in 5. Are you interested? And could you make that work? And I was like, well, I could be on stage and I can guarantee that, but I haven't done camera work since I was the D Chevrolet girl in graduate school, right? And I put myself through graduate school with car commercials. I said, you might want to audition me, and if I'm not good, but sure, I'm happy to give it a try as long as you'll fire me if I'm bad, right? And they're like, okay, and then boom, they're like, here's our casting director, reach out to her, la 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 la, and that was the process. They're like, we're thinking about it, and then a day later I was like, I'm supposed to reply to this casting director for my availability. Okay.
What was going through your head? What were you feeling?
Well, anything. Like I teach my kids, what was going through my head is, you better get up to speed, girl. And so there are really incredible, there's a really incredible community here in the Triangle of people who do camera work in Atlanta and Charlotte. Wilmington, North Carolina used to be a really big film hub until the tax incentives changed and it moved to Atlanta. So there's lots of people who know what they're doing, and I reached out to many of the people who knew what they were doing and said, I have a thing and I need to get up to speed. And Edith Snow here in the Triangle was great, helping me get ready. And so I had about 8 months to get ready, and I got ready. I did the work, right? Like, you get an opportunity, do the work to be ready for it.
Knock the rust off a bit.
Right.
So what was your reaction when you saw Ross's post? Were you expecting that kind of a shut up?
My reaction was, Ross said, oh, we were talking about the season coming out, and Ross was like, hey, by the way, I posted on my Instagram about you. Is that okay? Because I'm always reaching out to them. Like, somebody wants me to speak about you. I refused it. Is that okay? Or somebody asked me if I could get you the script. This is how I'm responding to it. Is that what you want me to say, or is there something else? So I'm usually going back and saying that to them. And so I was very cavalier. I was like, sure, not a problem, blah, blah, blah. I don't think at the moment I had an understanding of what, when an artist who has captivated the interest of the world turns their gaze towards you, what that does. I don't know if I would have said yes as cavalierly. But it was out there and it was done, and I think I'm a symbol. I've always said that, right? That high school theater teachers, people are like, oh, she was amazing, and we are. But there are definitely, and those boys included, artists who were already on their way, and they just make with you and near you as they travel, and that's a gift. So the fact that they reached back out and wanted to share it was incredible. And you become, once they go on, you become the vessel of when they were discovering that they were an artist. You become the symbol of their memory of themselves. And I'm happy to hold that space, but I don't take any kudos about it. They would have done that anywhere. I think the best you can do as an arts teacher is not get in the way.
Well, they said you saw something in them, and I imagine as a teacher, seeing a student with potential, encouraging them, and then seeing that dream come true might be very
It is exceptionally gratifying. But I also think that that's one of the things for having arts education in public education, is because I didn't see something in them specifically. I think it's my job as an arts teacher to teach them to see something in themselves, and all of my students to see their voice and to see the tiny spark in them and to fan it in every single one of your kids. And there are lots of people who have people at home who fan that flame. And artist is a title that's openly available in your family lexicon and in the lexicon for their children. And there are some students who that isn't even a thing. I grew up in a household with very crafty, very musical, very arty people, but being an artist was not something that was in the scope of imagination in my house, even though we were art consumers. And so I think that that's something that's important. That I do think that for those students and for all of my students, I train them and speak to them about training them. I'm training you today so that you can be a professional artist. This may seem silly in this tiny microcosm, but the reason I said it today is the example. The reason that we don't treat plastic knives without prop protocol is because if you're on a set one day and you're handling firearms, I want you to have the habit of mind to be safe. So I am training you, so if you want to do this never, you know something, and if you want to do this always, you are started on a strong foundation. And I think every student in a democracy deserves that.
I have yearbook photos.
Somebody put them up. There's all these like iterations. No, I did it. I was like, look at those baby faces. I know. That's not even the best one. That's their junior year. That's their freshman photo. The babies. So funny. Yeah, they're very sweet. And I feel bad about it, but they're in my head, they're the boys, right? They're the boys.
Yeah.
And they're absolutely grown men and artists in their own right, but to me, they're the boys.
What were they like in high school?
Well, I will say I do not talk about what they were like in high school because I don't want my students now to be like, oh, well, what should you say about me when I'm gone, right? But I can say that they were part of a system of kids that really embraced ensemble education and thought that if you gave over to the larger thing, your skills, whatever those skills were, that the sum of our parts was going to be greater than, right? The whole was going to be greater than the sum of the parts. And I think that was formative because they're not the only people who are continuing professional art careers from that group, right? Everybody's at different levels of being known, but all of them are working at a high level and quality. And so I think that whole era was a thing. And I also think that I was a young teacher. I hope that I retain this, but who knows? But I certainly at that time thought of myself as a working teaching artist. I still do, but had more time to be a working teaching artist. And so a lot of our ethos was, oh, that's a cool idea. Let's see how that works out. And sometimes it got us in hot water, and sometimes we got told no by administration, but we were willing to take anybody's idea and try it out, and if it failed, it failed, and if it succeeded, it was kind of lovely. And I think that that's something that all of that group of students took forward with them and has served them well.
And high school can be tough, right? Puberty is pain, I think is what I used to say. And I saw in their post, they said that it was a tough time for them. What's your advice for people, maybe high schoolers out there who have a big dream like this or who might be having a tough time?
Well, what I tell every 8th grader who comes to East is guard your joy, find your tribe. That's really, if you can get out of high school with just that, everything else gravy.
Love it. Let's see.
And the arts are a great way to do that for a lot of kids.
And what about, you were trained for 8 months. What about stepping on that set? What was that like?
Well, I'm not sure if this is happenstance, or I do think that it might have been director's choice, knowing what they know about me. I stepped on set, and we got a quick chance to say hello to each other, but the first scene that we filmed was with a whole bunch of small people. And I love first day of school energy. And they know I love first day of school energy. And so to put me on a bus full of like 25, 12-year-olds that I have to get to know in a half an hour, like, this is my jam. I know how to do this, right? And that sort of modality put me at ease. And then everything else was like, oh, do the job. But I think that was actually pretty crafty of them.
You've been training your whole life for this.
I know, right? Yeah.
Let's see. Oh yeah. Do you recognize pieces of yourself in Miss Harris?
Well, no, because in writing it, I do think that what they talk about teachers is their respect for teachers. I don't think that that's like, I think they had great teachers at Jordan, but I think it speaks about their respect for teachers, and they did have that as students, right? There were people who were like, oh, if somebody has something to teach me, they leaned into finding good mentors. They were very discerning about the mentors they chose. But I will tell you that Miss Harris, what I see in Miss Harris, because I made these choices as an actor, is I brought in pieces of Mrs. Thomas, who was my kindergarten and third grade teacher, because what they wrote reminded me of those women and what they gave me. Dory Bolivar, who was my sixth grade teacher, who treated us like we were scholars when we were 11 and dumb. When we were in 6, 7 mode, right? She treated us like we were academic scholars, which is sometimes difficult to stay clear-sighted about when junior high kids behave like junior high kids, right? And so those are things, and there are Easter eggs. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but there's an Easter egg. I quote a very familiar phrase of Rosemary Simpson, who was a very helpful mentor teacher to me when I was a new Jordan teacher. And I, in one of the background scenes, use a phrase that if you know Rosemary Simpson, you're like, oh, that's my little Easter egg to her.
I love Easter eggs, so this is great. I'm gonna look back through and try to find it. Could you get a just like spot on so you like just see her so we could use it as a soundbite? Okay, cool. Thanks. I like getting behind the scenes too, but yeah, just so it's like straight on. Yeah, and maybe even like closer, so it's kind of like ooh, and put it in cinematic. No.
Do I have?
Yeah, so just
do I have the kind of makeup that you want me that close?
No, it's good. It's good, and it's not like no worry.
Because HD is the thing.
Oh, I know. So, did this all just feel a little surreal?
The filming the first day was a little like new kid at school. I really loved it because I haven't been in many artistic settings where I could remember what it's like for my students to walk onto a musical rehearsal for the first time. So I was marking like, oh, what are the things that my kids need to know so that they'll feel comfortable? Like after the second day, you're like, oh, I know how to read a call sheet. Oh, I know who I check in with. Like all those little things that once you know them, you forget that you didn't know them. So I was kind of marking them. Maybe it's a teacher ego armor, right? Like if I can get something to teach my kids about this, I don't have to really experience how incredibly like I am. But it coming out, being at the premiere and like all the buzz around it is weird. It's unnerving. And what I thought about, and it's been great to be love bombed for 72 hours, right? Like absolutely, I'll take it. And it's great to like connect with former students who reach out. That all gravy. I love that. I could never send out an invitation invite to have people reach out to me that had the scope that this one does. Thank you, right? But I have some empathy for students who get that upside down in their lives and get hate bombed with that kind of ferocity. And I knew it as a Gen X teacher, but I didn't like feel it behind my solar plexus like I do now. And I hope I carry that understanding with me, but also that's the thing about it that makes me uneasy. Of like, oh, it works like this and yay, but that also means it exists in the space with the other's power, and I don't know if I'm particularly comfortable with that.
I've had the same thought, and it's like, do you find that it's harder maybe as a teacher to help people find their voice in a world where everyone's watching and maybe people are a little more scared because of that?
Absolutely. I mean, I will never have the time to change the algorithm about me. I plan to live for a long time, and I just won't have the time, energy, or power. And I don't know, I think it's okay for me as someone in my 50s who has something to balance it against inside, right, my identity. But developing an identity, and especially an artistic identity, I don't think it's good for anybody.
And I know I asked this before, but just because we have the WRAL too, what's your tell me about your teaching style. How do you help people find their voice? How do you encourage them to chase these dreams?
I certainly teach like I'm working with artists who happen to be of high school age, not high school artists. That's one thing. And more and more, particularly since my maternity leave, and when I came back and they're like, oh, Miss Hines always used to do this. Miss Hines always was I was kind of the discipline, the like, this needs to be right, and the like leveling of how much do you care about it. And they were missing that. They were weak in it because I was strong in it. So when I came back after maternity leave, I was like, I can't always be that engine of discipline and drive. And so I have kind of developed a style that we term benevolent neglect. Whatever they can do for themselves, I let them. And sometimes it's really hard to sit on your hands and watch them mini fail. But I've said it so much this week about Mamma Mia auditions. People are like, I'm afraid to audition. I was like, where else is there going to be a better place, even if your worst fear comes true? You walk into auditions, you burst into tears, and you can't perform at all. Where is there going to be a better opportunity to do that and have somebody who's going to like hug you and be proud of you for doing that? Like, when are you going to get that? That's what I want you to fail here so that you're ready to succeed elsewhere. Because there was a math teacher who did an opening PD. It was the one PD that I'm like, oh, that's valuable. She said, well, we make the lessons, we chunk out the lessons, and we do this for them, and because we don't want them to fail. She's like, no, you just don't want them to fail around you. If you really didn't want them to fail, you'd have them so ready that they're competent when you're not around. And so that's, in soft and hard ways, how we've embraced that. That's
That makes sense, moving through challenges, Let's see. Just checking my... what's something that maybe people don't know about Stranger Things, about this experience? I know, that post went crazy. What's something you're like,
having been in the episode, it is hard to watch it as a fan anymore because you end up watching actors who, and especially for me, my orientation is like to cheer on young actors. So I'm like, oh, there's Eden. Oh, go Carter. Oh, look at Alicia, how cute she is, right? Or like, why you gotta kill Manny like that? It's really hard once you know people on set to like turn that off and enjoy the story. And I hope that gets easier once. I haven't watched it more than once. So like once I get a couple repeats, I hope that becomes a little, like, I have a little bit of distance, because I have the same problem with our musicals, right? Like I don't ever really enjoy the story. I've never really gone to one of my musicals. I'm either like cheering somebody on or like, oh, right? Or like I'm still directing it and inside of it, yeah.
Yeah, looking to, you know too much.
Yeah.
Let's see. I think I covered most of it. I'm trying to. Oh yeah, the Easter eggs we talked about a bit. The River and all that stuff.
Oh,
Lake Jordan, Cornwallis Road. I mean, it's kind of cool to see those local landmarks too, right?
It is, yeah. And like that, Durham gets its due, right? There is something about, I think it's particularly because of the themes of Stranger Things, right? Which are mimicking a lot of themes that resonated for me when I was a Stephen King reader, that there's something magical about the vulnerability of children. And I think that that's also translates to, there's something magical about people who choose to stay vulnerable all through their lives, and those are artists. They can see things, they can do things that other people in individual boxes can't. And that's, if magic exists in the world, that's how we make it.
What have your students' reaction?
It's crazy. My favorite was a tech student who I've still had a relationship with, like that he'll always walk by and be like, hey, Miss Hines. He brought a gaggle of young ladies with him. And to the door, he's like, hi, Miss Hines, do you have a moment? He's like, they want to meet you. And that was like, they can just say hello. I'm still who I was. Right? My offices are right across from the bathrooms. And so like my major identity before this was the lady who yells at you to go back to class from her office. right? And so the very first day we got back, and I usually go, ladies, beauty is temporary, knowledge is forever, go back to class. And I'm in my office and I hear, because they're echoey chambers, the kids don't realize you can hear everything that they're talking about in there all the time, right? And I hear, no, yeah, that's her. Yeah, no, she was there. And so I walked in instead. I was like, okay. I said, you know what? Gossiping about a teacher's acting career is temporary. Knowledge is forever. Go back to class. So I have a new patter, I guess, a new shtick.
As the bathroom monitor.
As the bathroom monitor. Yeah, that's right.
The bathroom
Yay! The glamour! Right. TV stars, they're just like us.
They are. What does it mean to you to know that North Carolina, too, is a piece of, one of the biggest TV shows right now?
I love it. I would have liked it better if it had been filmed in Wilmington, North Carolina with lots of my friends. I mean, I'm glad, but it would have been nicer because we would have a richer community of expat artists. We did, and I've seen that, right? Like, we had a really rich community of expat artists because they could make a living. And Atlanta is, if we had not had a district that was so supportive, really supportive of that time, and honestly, if I hadn't been a 25-year teacher with the days and a supportive husband, it's hard. It's hard. And people can't live on what they make on a commercial and a co-star role a year. So you got to have a full-time job, and a full-time job where you can jet out to Wilmington for 2 hours is different than a full-time job where you have to drive 5.5 hours to Atlanta, stay overnight, and take 3 days off of work.
Yeah, I know. A policy change, too, changed a lot of what was filmed here.
Yeah. And that means that a very simple policy change could revive that industry.
What, if Ross and Matt were watching this right now, what would you want to say to them?
I've said it to them, but what a blast to collaborate again and have it flipped around. The thing that, when people have been talking about it, that I don't think that we talk to them, is that it takes a certain amount of trust, that actor-director thing, and they trusted me like that when they were my students, that if I put them in a show or I volunteered them for a project, I would take care of them, and there was never any question. There might have been a question for me about whether I was ready, but there was never a question in my mind the whole time that they wouldn't take care of me. And I think that that's pretty powerful, and I'm really grateful for that and proud of them for that. Right? That's all you want.
So, such a full circle.
That is correct.